a lot of work for veterans. In fact, we've been leading the charge on fighting the Department of Veterans Affairs to deliver services in a timely and efficient fashion to veterans, which they have not been doing, and it's a national disgrace. And we've been as aggressive, if not more, than any group in this country. But our group's not just about veterans issues. We want to empower vets to be a part of solving the big problems all Americans face for this country. Because when you served, you went on to serve all Americans, not just other veterans. And we think veterans are particularly powerful spokesmen for the cause of freedom here at home. And that's why we're Concerned Veterans for America. And this tour is about three things: honoring service, defending freedom, and taking action. And we want to honor service at every stop and recognize vets and families and thank them. And then we want to get up here and talk about what it means to defend freedom. I don't have to tell you about the problems we face in our country today. Turn on the news and look at the shutdown. Look at veterans not being allowed to go to the World War II memorial. Absolutely, it's disgraceful. Veterans being used as pawns in a political game. And you know, we don't need winners and losers in Washington right now. We need one thing that we do not have: leadership. None of it. And so we're standing up here to provide it and fight for it, because you know what? Veterans have, and those who have served, understand what it means to serve something higher than yourself, than a political party, than Republicans or Democrats, or personal self-interest. To serve something higher, like your country, your Constitution, God, family, values that this country should and ought cherish. Yeah. And so we're going across the country with that message, talking about the threat of $17 trillion of national debt, that it's a national security threat. Talking about the impact of sequestration and stupid policies that gut our military. Yeah. Talking about how to bring jobs back for veterans and all Americans, because we haven't seen this administration deliver that. Yeah. So we are leading the charge on critical issues, and you're going to hear more about that. But the most important part of this tour is about taking action. Madison Rising is amazing, and these speeches tonight, who you hear, you're going to love it. But if you just go home and pat yourself on the back with a warm glow and feel good about it, that is not enough. Because for too long, that's what we've done. And when you don't act, you give it away to those with other views, other beliefs, other priorities, other agendas to drive this country in the wrong direction. There we go. I know there was an election. I hope folks here voted. And if you didn't, you know what? Veterans are severely under-registered to vote. And it's a damn shame that those who have served this country aren't coming back and registering and voting and being part of the process. So we're urging veterans and military families to take action. And that's why I hope you'll take a look at our Action Center over here. That's what it's all about. Sign up with CVA to be a part of an organization that's going to fight and fight and fight again. And be smart about the way we do it. So while you're hearing Madison Rising, while you're hearing other speeches, we hope you'll make your way on over and just take a look at who we are and what we do. We're passing out free t-shirts. We've got a video of what we're about. You can sign up to sign our backlog petition at the Department of Veterans Affairs. You can sign up for training right here in Albuquerque in a couple of weeks. We'll train you to be a more effective activist, grassroots supporter. And we're not doing it. I'm an infantryman myself. I don't know anything about grassroots training. But we brought the Grassroots Educational Institute with us, a professional group of grassroots trainers, to help you. How do I knock doors? How do I make phone calls? How do I write a letter to the editor? A personal handwritten letter, an op-ed, host an event, register people to vote. The types of dirty, difficult work that it takes to take back your country. That's what we want to train and empower veterans and military families to do. It is about time we take action. And that's what the Defend Freedom Tour is all about. Will you take action with us? I hope you will. I hope you will. The message of Madison Rising, the message of this tour, is that this country is worth fighting for. And that's why we're on the road, and we're going to fight for it until we don't have any more breath to fight for it. But you can't just do it by debating and discussing. You got to do it by rolling your sleeves up and doing the dirty work. And that's why we've got the Action Center following this bus across the entire country and getting people engaged and involved. So we hope you'll check it out as you hear all these other speeches. Take a look at what we're doing, get an understanding of the types of things we've already done. There's a reason the Department of Veterans Affairs puts out press releases after we do events, because they know we're exposing the bureaucratic failure of that department, and they're feeling the heat. And when they feel the heat, they start to react. But with no heat, they just keep going on doing what they're doing. Taking in more money, doing less for veterans in the process. That's not how it should be, and someone's got to hold them accountable. And that's exactly what we're doing. So check out the Action Center. And before we get Madison Rising up here for another set, I want to introduce you to a speaker who I think you'll enjoy hearing from. His name is Lieutenant Colonel Steve Russell. And I don't know about you, but you probably remember where you were in 2004 when you heard Paul Bremer say the words, "We got him." Steve Russell didn't have to hear that from Paul Bremer because he heard it over his closed-circuit radio. Colonel Russell was the commander in charge of Task Force 122, the unit charged that held the ground into Crit that was central to the hunt and capture of Saddam Hussein. It was literally Colonel Russell's men that did that difficult and dirty and dangerous work to dismantle the network, find him, and help pull him out of his rat hole. But his service didn't stop there. He came back and was a part of fighting for vets. He's founded a group called Vets for Victory. It was part of fighting for the troops over there and making sure they had what they needed to succeed and win. And he's since joined us as an advocate on critical issues. I know you'll love hearing from him. I have two little boys, as I said. And if I could have them serve under a battalion commander, it would be Lieutenant Colonel Steve Russell, or a man like Lieutenant Colonel Steve Russell, who puts the troops first, the mission always, and stays focused on what he's got to get done because he loves this nation and understands what it takes to defend it. I'm also going to make a shameless plug after he's done. He's got a book. It's called We Got 'Em. And any book you sell tonight, I get 25% of it. So I've got a little bit of a self-interest. No, I really don't. I wish I did. But it'll be next to our Action Center as well. You should check it out. But ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Lieutenant Colonel Steve Russell.
Well, we appreciate you guys wandering over out of curiosity to see what's going on tonight, and it's always great to be in Albuquerque. When I was a boy growing up in Del City, Oklahoma, I never thought that I would be a part of anything historic. Like so many of you veterans, I did my duty. I served in units and did the things that, is expected of any of us. But one thing became clear when we entered Iraq, and we ended up being in charge of the infantry troops in Saddam's hometown of Tikrit. And it became apparent early on from tips from local Iraqis how Saddam operated his security apparatus. We got information from a couple of businessmen, and they laid out how Saddam protected himself with layers of bodyguards, a group of 25, a group of 40, and then 3 groups of what they called special security officers that protected Saddam anywhere he would travel. And they told us that these groups were still in place even though Saddam had fled. Over the course of the next 6 months, we decided to take that information and we tore into Saddam's social networks. Imagine yourself, if you younger folks, if you were to go on Facebook and you were looking at all your friends and track down your friends, we could probably find you. For you older folks, where you would associate with, who your families are, who you are associated by blood or by marriage or that sort of thing. And it was really no different. There were half a dozen of these families, and over time we felt that although they were very good at protecting Saddam, they may not have been very good at protecting themselves. Early successes confirmed that. We ended up capturing the Ace of Diamonds, Abid Mahmoud, in a raid with a Special Operations Forces team led by a guy called Jack. And we got Saddam's #1 personal bodyguard by midsummer. And over time, we began to have more and more success in necking down these families. By the first week of December, we got a tip from a boy that told us about a farm where some people were hiding or staying. And so we checked that out, the information from this boy, and the result of that raid led us on a series of very fast-paced operations in the first week of December. Long story short, on the night of December 11th and 12th, there was a guy named Mohammed al-Muslit that was captured in Baghdad by a Special Operations Forces team led by a guy called John. When that guy was captured, we were elated because we felt if he were ever captured, he had to know the location of Saddam. And so my commander, Colonel Jim Hickey, who led the 1st Brigade of the 4th Infantry Division, which my task force was a part, we got everything ready, and by 8 o'clock that night, we had John's team was reinforced with 2 other Special Operations Forces teams that came up from Baghdad, and their squadron commander came, and then the other forces, we all centered around 2 farms and an orchard. And on this farm, it was very nondescript, 3-room hut, not much there. 8 o'clock, all forces were set. The Little Birds came in, disgorged the Special Operations troops. Everything was cordoned around that area. About 1,000 soldiers involved in the raid, including the air assets. As everything came in, 2 guys tried to flee, and they go running through the orchard. Turns out to be Saddam's cook and his brother. We didn't know it at the time. Time went by, about 8:26, nothing. Except Muslim had been brought along for the raid, and as they pressured him, they brought him into an area where there was a patio, there was a gate, orchard, and when they brought him in, they said, "Look, where is he?" And he motions with a foot towards a foot mat, and he says, "He's here." And so they put a bag over his head, and they got him out of there and got the others out of there, and as they pull away this foot mat, they saw bits of rope and dirt. They began to brush it away, pulled it, saw it was a top to a tunnel or a hole or something of that nature. And as they saw that, they saw 2 hands down on the bottom and like a guy down on all fours. John, he radioed to Colonel Hickey. He said, "Sir, we may have something." And we all perked up. And what happened after that, they began to shout. They had a flashbang grenade ready to put in the hole, but there was no need for it. As they shouted and said, who are you? Come out, put your hands up, that sort of thing. From the bottom of the hole, you heard a voice. And he said, "I'm Saddam Hussein, the duly elected president of Iraq, and I'm willing to negotiate." So one of John's soldiers, he says, "Well, President Bush sends his regards." And he told the translator, Samir, who lives in St. Louis, he says, "Samir, tell him to put his hands up before he gets himself killed." One hand comes up, one arm, another. When there's enough of him to grab, they get him by the scruff of the neck, the hair, the beard, and out came the president of Iraq. He had a sunburst tattoo on his hand, a 3-dot tattoo on his other hand. As they were checking for marks, he got a little uppity and tried to shove one of the soldiers away, and that was a stupid thing to do, so they straightened him out, and that's how he got the cut on his mouth and his eyebrows, you may recall. And then they put a bag over his head. Little Bird helicopter flown by a pilot, I'll call DB. He comes and lands, and they throw him on board, and he flies to the water palace in Tikrit, Iraq, and we kept it in great secrecy that night. Maybe 60 of us knew that he had been captured, but we kept it even from many of the troops that were involved in the operation, so that the president wouldn't be notified by Fox News or CNN, that he would actually get it the way he was supposed to. And then you heard, and as you remember, how the news went around the world when it was announced. And I never thought that I would be involved with any of that. It was incredible as it occurred. And I remember after everything calmed down and we finally brought all the forces in, and I looked up to the stars and I said, "God, I don't know why we were involved with any of this, but whatever comes of it, I hope it'll do some good." And so that's why I go out and I join forces with Pete and others, because as we came home, at that time people were talking about the war, and they were saying that the war was lost and that our service and sacrifice in Iraq was a waste, and that we were doing our duty for nothing, which is like a kick in the gut when you're over there fighting and you've lost soldiers. And so we teamed up and began to fight back in the 2007 time frame. Went on tour, we did different things to try to support people to support the surge and get behind our troops. The mission's a little different now. Iraq has had a good ending. It's had a successful ending. Afghanistan, we still got troops fighting there, and they'll come home maybe next year, maybe not. It depends on the situation. But as we look at our country, where are we? As we come home, it's almost as if we've seen our country, after a decade of fighting, we come home and see the nation lost to the hands of the self-indulgent, the divisive, and the vigilant. And while our country is borrowing what it can't hope to pay tomorrow and putting all of you in jeopardy, the people sit around shrugging their shoulders worrying about Miley Cyrus and Justin Bieber's latest tattoo.
Yeah!
God help us. That's why we can't sit idle. There are a lot of veterans' hands out there. We can't listen to cynics and critics that are going to sit around and say, well, you know, it just doesn't matter anymore. This country is worth fighting for. And that's why we're here, and that's why we've started on the West Coast, and we're going to make it all the way to the East Coast. We need your voice to come with ours, and not just to sign up and get some newsletter and then feel good, like Pete said, but your voice can matter. Petitions have been signed. We've already seen the VA take action because of the petitions that our group has done in front of the White House and making things known. And you'll have a chance to do workshops here and do grassroots right here in Albuquerque, not someplace across, but right here in your hometown. And I want to ask you to join us, sign up in the Action Center, get with your local guys and our field staff here, and as